Thank you, Zoom, for the announcement. So thanks everybody for joining us this evening and taking time to spend it with us for this conversation. I'm super excited to speak with you a little bit more, Dianne. Before I bring you up, I was reading your bio on your website, saw the pictures of your cute dogs, the one that was in your lap just a second ago. But yeah, just to, I can read a quick little bit of your bio before I kind of give you the floor, just to give everybody a little sense of where you're coming from. But Dianne C. Braley is a registered nurse with a passion for music, poetry, and literature. Dianne has been featured in various online and printed publications, including Today's Dietitian and Scrubs magazine. Her nursing blog, Nursing the Neighborhood, was named one of the top nursing blogs of 2018 by Nurse Recruiter. Growing up in Massachusetts, tough and turbulent inner cities, Dianne has always walked a thin line between her creative dreams, and there's text right there wanting to get some of the attention. From your strong blue-collar roots. From a young age, she has found solace from her raw and difficult world growing up in alcoholism and writing and music. Her creative spirit helped guide her through a rebellious adolescence. Maybe we'll talk a little more about that. Working hard in college, Dianne became a registered nurse like her mother to help others and escape the rough lifestyle of her youth, but she never gave up on her dream of writing. And after caring for a celebrity novelist on the picturesque island of Martha's Vineyard, the friendship that blossomed between them inspired her to pick up her pencil again and dive into her true calling. So now the author of her debut novel, The Silence and the Sound familiar? Dianne escapes the vineyard every summer to reinvigorate herself and channel her creative drive. She's currently pursuing a degree in creative writing. Dianne and her family are firmly planted in a small town north of Boston, but not far enough away to lose her city edge. So everybody, virtual welcome to Dianne C. Braley.
Hey. Hi guys. Hi, so this is so weird being on Zoom and I can't see faces.
It's literally just a conversation.
I'm just talking to you. Hi guys, thank you for zooming in. As some of you know, this book has been just such a journey. I've spent years writing, well, taking notes and then subsequently writing, and it took such a long time because it's painful. It's inspired by actual events, as many of you know, and it's a bit personal, and that can, take its toll. And it was cathartic. It was great. And it's also was very difficult. So I'm so excited that it's here, and I've been, plugging away, and I'm just so happy to talk to you all. And I figured I'd just read the blurb, and I would love to just read a little piece of the novel. So, The Silence and the Sound. On the picturesque island of Martha's Vineyard, an ailing celebrity novelist's famous book about a choice helps his young nurse make a heart-rendering one of her own. Fiery city girl Georgette's memory of a childhood trip to Martha's Vineyard Island with her father is one of the few good times. Her father was an alcoholic, and her enabler mother chose to stay with him. His addiction was the center of their world. Georgette fled home as soon as she could. Years later, as a nurse, she's going back to the island to start her life over. There, she becomes the private nurse for an ailing prize-winning novelist, Mr. S., and becomes enamored with the mysterious Doc, a wash ashore like her, whose disappearing acts only make her crave his love more. As Georgette cares for Mr. S. and helps him come to terms with the end of his life, along Vineyard Sound's beautiful shores, they become friends. His famous book helps her navigate her life, as George finds in the running away from her past, she inadvertently ran towards it. She loses herself in a relationship with Doc, who leads her down a road of denial and impossible choices she never thought she'd have to face. And then told through the voice of Georgette, The Silence and the Sound is a provocative coming of age debut, revealing the lasting effects of growing up in addiction, but it also demonstrates a young woman's strength as she navigates friendship, love, and heartbreak while finding her hidden strength along the way. And I didn't write that last one.
Awesome.
And then I chose, The island, the book takes place on Martha's Vineyard, and it also features Revere, Massachusetts, where I'm from, where I grew up. And the island to me was so, it was very, I really was so important for me to capture this setting appropriately and do it justice, because it's just, to me, the most beautiful place in the world, and to so many people. And I knew if I didn't do it right, the islanders would have a real problem. But I have heard that I have done it justice, so that is good thus far. So Martha's Vineyard. Raindrops pelted the windshield, startling me. Sleep had eluded me for days, and I was both tired and wired, living off coffee after getting the news. It's funny how, though you know something terrible is coming, you expect it and are ready for it, you think, but then it happens and it blindsides you. You're never as prepared as you think you are, if at all. I'd been here before and I wasn't remotely ready. This time was no different. More drops fell and my eyes welled as if the rain had somehow triggered me to join it. The sun was bright in the sky ahead of me, past the clouds, near the Oceanographic Institute. I slowed the Jeep, pulling onto some open grass on the side of the road. Tears spilled down my face and I rested my head on the steering wheel, the moisture hitting my legs below my skirt. The rain tapped on the windshield in a loud rhythm, aligning with my heartbeat, which I was intensely aware of in my anxious caffeine-fueled state. Inhaling deeply, I held my breath, then blew out slowly against the steering wheel. I can't do this, I whispered, turning my face toward the vent for the cold air to dry my tears. An overwhelming feeling of panic and dread came over me, and I reached for my throat, feeling as if I were choking, and I tried to clear it. I fucking hate you, I breathed out, hanging my head and sobbing, clutching the steering wheel as hard as I could. Hobo touched me with his paw. I ignored him, watching a string of saliva fall from my mouth onto my legs, joining the wetness from the tears. I wiped my mouth, smearing lipstick across my hand, and stared at my legs, feeling numb. A few moments went by, then the Jeep vibrated from the rumble of a truck passing, and I lifted my head. I looked through blurry eyes, seeing the clouds now gone and the sky bright and blue, with the trees cleared a few yards up. Suddenly, I remembered where I was. The tiny Coast Guard lighthouse sat on the little patch of land, the white caps breaking against it. The dark blue ocean stretched for miles, and seagulls called to one another as they hovered over the two ferries docked below. The blue of the sea was slightly darker than the blue-gray sky that met it. The contrast of colors in front of the golden and rust-colored sands of the island's cliffs several miles from shore was calming and comforting, and I closed my eyes. This was the point where the happy and calm came. I put the Jeep in drive, inching along the grass, 100 yards past the clearing, and rolled my window down. Leaning on the opening, I rested my chin on my forearm and I looked to the left. My lips turned up in a half smile and I inhaled the clean, salty air. There it was, across the water, the island, my island, or it used to be. Thank you.
Virtual applause, virtual applause. I feel like I'm there. I feel like I hear the water and feel like a mix of like the anxiety and the zen too. You know, it was just kind of like those conflicting feelings for this character. Thank you so much. I'd love to jump into some questions. So for everybody on the call that's watching, we have a Q&A function. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see Q&A. So if you have questions that you would like to ask Dianne about the book or her journey as a writer, or anything related to this conversation, please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A function or even in the chat as well. I'll keep an eye out on that, but definitely feel free to drop that in throughout this conversation. So Dianne, tell me a little bit about your background. So how did you get started in writing in general?
So I grew up in Revere, Massachusetts, which is really, a blue collar town. And I writing wasn't something that was, that I saw. Writing in the arts really wasn't incredibly encouraged. Although my aunt, which I believe is on here tonight, is an artist, and she was very inspiring. And I thank her for that, because she really, put a spark in me as far as the arts. But I would journal. I got a journal for Christmas, and after seeing Masha Brady on the Brady Bunch journal, journal, Dear Diary, and writing about Davy Jones. So I'm showing my age here, but I'd write Dear Diary in the journal, and that was, to me, that got pretty boring really fast, just recounting the days. But ever inspired by music, especially the 80s. The 80s music at the time was just so amazing, and I started to write almost lyrically in the journal, just all my teenage angst and heartache and all that stuff, and then that's that is really poetry. So that's how I started writing, and I just I always would just kind of write for my feelings out, but I never thought anything would come out of it, and I never thought. I just didn't, it wasn't just something I thought of. I just thought of, I grew up with words like you need to put food on the table, and a roof over your head, and that was the priority. And being a nurse is an honor and amazing, and I'm good at it, but in my soul, like that creative, it wasn't, something was missing.
So that passion around music, are you also a vocalist? Do you sing? Do you play instruments?
Well, I'm going to put text down. In my head, and in my, I am a vocalist, yes, but and at karaoke and in the shower and things like that, but no.
Still a performer nonetheless.
I did learn to play. I spent a boatload of money to learn to play one song on the guitar, and not musically. Learning an instrument's like math to me, but writing is that's it.
So we had one question come in the Q&A in terms of writing and reading. Who do you read?
Oh, well, currently I am reading, so many people. I'm so grateful that a lot of people reviewed my book as, before it came out, and to, give reviews and blurbs. And as an author, once your book gets out in the world, you have a lot of people that want you to read their book and get, see what you think, and if there's any help you could provide or review. So I'm reading all these genres one after the other that I normally wouldn't read. In which, at first I'm getting these requests and I'm saying yes, and I'm kind of having to back off a little bit because I am a slow reader. But historical fiction and some really dark crime and things like that, and I wouldn't normally read them, but I'm loving some of these. I just love them. So some historical fiction. I'm really kind of into historical fiction right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, kind of expanding your horizon and your interests a little bit.
Yeah.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your writing practice in general. So as somebody who is not a writer in terms of like an author and sitting down and writing a book, I sit down, I'm a comedian, I write set up punchline, right? It's very like linear. So tell me a little bit about your writing practice. Like, do you start with your setting? Do you start with your characters, or just how do you go about your writing process?
So it's funny, I listened to an interview with the author of Eat, Pray, Love, and her name eludes me, I apologize. And she was talking about her process, and she just thinks of a book for so long, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, and the whole thing just unravels, comes to life in her head. And I sort of do that. I'm not so completely, outline, and I do a rough little bit of an outline, and I just have ideas running through my head, and more often than not, I wake up in the middle of the night or I walk the dogs and I voice text, and these things just come to me, and I text myself, and I have all these sticky notes. I'm a real type A organized person, but when it comes to this, I'm fairly chaotic. There's sticky notes everywhere, and there's text messages to myself. That's my process. It's unlike me. I don't like it. I'd rather be organized, but it's what works.
Hey, if it works,
yeah,
you gotta make it work, right? So kind of going off that, we had a question come in. So was that the specific writing process for this book? Like, was it kind of small pieces? They said, was it small pieces over a long period of time? Or did you kind of like hide away and focus and really crank out some large blocks of writing for this book in particular?
So I've wanted to tell this story for so long. And when I started writing, I knew the protagonist, Georgette, and her father would have this, there would be some touching that would be touched. I never planned to write so much about the story was never going to be so much about her and her father's relationship and then kind of come back full circle at the end, as far as, growing up in addiction and falling in love with an addict. And I never really meant for this book, honestly, to be such about the premise of growing up, the effects of growing up in addiction. But when I started to write, I could tap into my own feelings about growing up, and I grew up in an alcoholic home, and my relationship with my father. I just couldn't believe how easily I could go back to that age as a kid and as a teenager. And I just kept writing and writing, and it just kept going. And somehow it found its way into the story I was trying to say anyway, and it connected. And so I just went with it.
So I kind of wasn't the initial thought of how you wanted to maybe focus on the story, but it kind of delved into that a little bit more.
Yes, it wasn't, the book was not supposed to be so much about her and her father's relationship at all. It was actually more, I would say, more of like a love story gone kind of sideways with addiction, and the grounding character of Mr. S on the island and their relationship. But I actually think it worked, and I'm really just so excited that people are seeing that it's about the effects of addiction. And because they say I had the honor of being the nurse for William Styron, the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Sophie's Choice, who this is some of the book is inspired by my time with him and on the island. And he would say, and many writers say, write about what you know. And I know a lot about addiction. And as much as I didn't set out to write about that, I definitely know a lot about it. So it worked.
Yeah. And I think it's something that, definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but just my perception is it's something that's definitely wasn't discussed back then, but now is getting a little bit more attention and discussions and coming to the forefront. A lot of documentaries coming out about different forms of addiction and a lot of support systems and lifelines or different resources, if you're watching these things that kind of come up after different documentaries and things like that. So I think it's definitely maybe more in the forefront of conversation than it used to be.
Well, that's really honestly, in my house, you really couldn't hide it. So, which my mom would say sometimes that's a blessing. I'm not sure how much of a blessing it was, but I understood her point, meaning you couldn't have that like the little dirty secret, and it shouldn't be dirty anyway. It's not ideal, and nobody wants to live, I think, with someone struggling with addiction, and that I think addicts, don't want to be struggling with this. And that's why in this book, I'm so proud that I've partnered with Robert F. Kennedy Community Alliance organization, and part of the proceeds is going to them and their division. And I researched this intensely and had so many meetings with them, but their division that helps the kids and families affected by addiction, because that to me is so important. And we spend so much time on, there's so much funding for the addicts, and there's obviously not enough, but the kids, we're just, as you said, they grow up, even still to this day, it's a secret, it's shameful, or no one says anything about it, and they just act like it's normal. And these kids have a higher probability of growing up to be addicts themselves or people of dysfunction. So it's just, even just a little education, it just would go such a long way. So that's what I'm hoping to help with.
Yeah, definitely. A question came in. So you mentioned a little bit, but I don't know if you want to expound a little bit more, how you hope this book will help others.
Well, that's
Mhm.
I really hope that twofold, that the kids affected by addiction, but I have to say, so many people have already said that, which just it's just mind blowing to me. Some people, they, readers will tell you things that you didn't even really
Mhm.
see, that, but a lot of people, like, we grow up and we see our parents as just our parents and not as humans. And at a certain age, hopefully we can come beyond that and see them as people.
Mhm.
Some people don't, though, but to see, our parents are human too, and other people in our lives are struggle with things too, and they're not just ours and they existing for us. And I've had so many readers, tell me I brought humanity and empathy to someone struggling with addiction, and it's okay. They don't always have to be portrayed as the bad guy, or they're just bad people, or things
Mhm.
like that, which I think they often are. People love them, and the people that love them struggle greatly from their disease and because of the disease. So I've just had so many readers say that to me, and they just felt so connected. So that just made me feel great.
Oh yeah, and you talking about being inspired by real life events. Can you tell me a little bit about that process? Like, how was it difficult to write, and maybe what was the hardest part of writing the book, kind of getting yourself back into that like really personal space?
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't, my father succumbed to the disease when I was 18. So it had been many, many years that I thought that you think you've dealt with something, and it's always painful. You don't ever get over things like that, but it's been many years. But then tapping right back into those feelings, and even going to therapy for things, you're talking to someone. But when you're writing, if you're writing about something personal, you're reliving it, you're living it, and it's so different. And I really actually, I struggled with some parts, but I really enjoyed that relationship, and being creative with George and her father's relationship, and tapping into mine, because I really enjoyed creating Georgette, and I really enjoyed kind of reliving who I was, this tough young girl. But I really struggled later on in the book, when I was kind of tapping into a young woman struggling with the effects of all of this, and then navigating life and falling in love. And I did find myself at one point, Georgette, the protagonist, I was writing, and I didn't like her. I didn't like her, and then I in turn didn't like myself, and I really was like, oh God, I just don't like her, which was hard.
Yeah. Is there anything that you steered away from in the book?
uh, I think we all steer away from, I don't want to, it was really hard to, when you're writing about things, even though it's fiction, it's, inspired by actual events, there's some people in my life that could recognize themselves in
Mhm.
situation, in characters and things like that. And people don't realize sometimes, when you're writing things as, uh, there's a snapshot of this person, or a snapshot of what someone would perceive to be their character or this event. And you're not writing three-dimensional, or the before and the after, and all your feelings and all this, and nothing's ever all encompassing. So I think that's really hard for some people, and it would probably be hard for me. So I did steer away a bit. Like, I just tried to really focus on the characters, and not any second, not really go crazy with secondary characters.
I know you're like, we only have a certain amount of pages.
Yeah.
This can't be an extremely long
War
story
and
where
Peace.
we're seeing everything. Yeah. So speaking of the characters, we had a question come in. It seems that Mr. S is the one true stabilizing force in George's life. Question mark.
Oh my God. I feel like, did someone, whoever said that, I feel like that's what I when I wrote this, I didn't realize, sometimes you don't realize things 100% till it's completion. And that was, and also, as I said, inspired by actual events. During that time in my life with Mr. Styron, I look back on that, and that's exactly who he was at that time of my life. And Mr. S certainly is Georgette's the one solid in her life of everything. Even though he's a man of so few words, he's melancholic and, coming to terms with the end of his life. He's the everyday presence in her life and it's a solid, and they're, weirdly codependent on each other, but who wouldn't be after, they're 7 days together, and intimate, it's very intimate being a patient nurse relationship. So he 100% is the grounding solid force in her life, and the feelings she has for him, and the need for him, and him, her, it's to me, it's pretty magical.
Definitely. Tell me a little bit about, if at all, any involvement of other people in the writing. So based on true events, was anybody brought into the writing process, or did you have any early readers, a writing group, some people that you kind of turned to for feedback and advice in the stages of the development process for this story?
Oh God, yes. I mean, I think there's not a writer out there that just writes a book and doesn't have a crew or a posse of people that I mean, there's just so much from the people that encouraged me, my friends and my family that kept me going, my sister, my friend Carrie, and then the beta. I had such a great group of beta readers that I found, and I made a lot of mistakes too, which you live and learn. This was my first novel, and I had I had 2 editors, and so I'd second guess things, and I think sometimes you got to do a bit more research to see, like, before you waste some money, and you have to do your research, get a lot of recommendations and things like that. So, but the Women's Fiction Writers Association that I'm involved with is just, and some other, they're the number one, but group, they have a Facebook group, and they're just so helpful. But there's just some wonderful writers groups, and I would not be here if I didn't utilize them.
Shout out. Yeah. And if anybody is here from that group, definitely
they're amazing.
Drop it in the chat, represent, say hello. And as a reminder, we have the Q&A open if anybody wants to ask some more questions throughout the conversation. We've had a few come in, and definitely maybe some of your thoughts on the story, if you've read it, if you haven't read it yet, maybe what you're looking forward to reading. So definitely drop those questions in there as well. What would you say, Dianne, if you could talk to yourself day one of writing now? So if you could go back and say, what's one thing I wish I would have known at the beginning of this process?
One thing? That's a hard question. One thing I would have known. Well, see, I would want to say how much of it is not just about writing a book. That seems like the biggest challenge ever. That is the beginning. There's so much, the querying, the synopsis, the endless, if you're trying to get an agent, or endless, feedback, criticism, rejections, all that. But I wouldn't, if someone had told me all of this path and how much, and then the marketing, I probably would have ran for the hills, so, but now then, you get halfway through something, now you're really in it, you put so much effort in, I'm not going back, I'm going for it. So I would have liked to known a bit more, and but I'm actually glad that I was blind. But I think looking at the market though, looking at the market, because sometimes you have a great story, but if it might not sell, you have to kind of look and look at your word counts too. You can't just throw 200,000 words. They don't want an author or debut author with you have to stay in a certain word count. I'm going all over the place. I'm going rogue.
No, it's okay. This is all helpful advice. Maybe there's individuals on the call with a story in their heart that they really want to tell, and like you're giving some really good advice to people who might want to do this themselves.
Tell it in a way that's marketable and stay within the word count for a debut author, or 80,000 words top.
You mentioned something in this last response, so getting feedback and getting notes and maybe some criticisms. How is that process for you and in general? Like, how was that when the story is so personal to you? Is that kind of difficult to navigate, or maybe, I don't know, tell me a little bit about getting notes and critiques when something that is really kind of based true to you and your experiences at the base.
Yeah, I mean, that is really tough. I think all of us who write anything, forget if it's even personal, right when you finish it, I'm sure you think, I think especially because it was personal when I finished, I know you think in your brain, okay, I'm going to get rejections, I might be ready for that. But you really kind of think, oh, well, I'm going to send this off, and that first agent, the dream agent who sees it is going to go, oh, I've been waiting for this my whole life,
Yeah, publish right away, no notes.
Right away, yeah. And then rejections just, come in and the feedback, and it's all different. You have to have some belief in yourself. Some people recommend, you have too much inner dialogue, you should this, that, and you start listening to every little thing, and you might take away from the characters of the story. You have to, some stuff you don't want to give up, you don't want to give up or cut or things like that, but you have to, I think getting defensive though, no, you take people's advice, you really sleep on it, think about it, because sometimes it's great, and much of the criticism has made my book so much better. So it really did. So 90% of the criticism made this book better. So I'm very thankful for it. And I learned to look at it through a different lens, that these are people that are, do this all the time and are helpful. But then certain things I had to go, wait a minute, and have someone you trust to bounce stuff off, because I had some people say, maybe not cut that because you're taking away from that. So it's, it's tough.
Yeah, trying to see, okay, is this what I want to keep in to kind of help the story and be true to what I'm trying to say, or should I?
My voice, like my character's voice, the book has a really strong New England vibe, a real strong New England voice, and sometimes I almost listened to some and cut some things where I was taken away from that, and it was making the character a little bit just so more vanilla. And I just said, I got to leave a little bit of that stuff in there. I just cut. They wanted me to cut too much, and that was one time I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, push back a little bit, question came in: were you focused on writing this book full time, or were you also working? And it says, did you work full time and have a family while you did all this writing the book?
Yeah, I worked. My family, I don't think my husband, son, or stepdaughter, or my dogs, or my chickens at the time knew I was writing the book, because their lives were not disturbed. I got up at, because I don't know, I just feel like that I didn't ask them to sacrifice much. I got up at 5 o'clock every morning and wrote before even like my son got up. So they knew towards the end, crunch time, they knew I was really writing, but I don't even think they knew how I did it. But yes, I have a full-time job. I'm a nurse, and luckily I work from home now. I left patient care, and I work from home and do so that was doable, but I have a family and all that stuff. So the time was get up early, stay up late.
Goodness, sometimes I'm like, I can't even sit down and write a joke, and then
a little bit here and there. Sometimes some days it was just a sentence. Some days it was just a sentence.
What inch by inch, and was the end goal in mind, and now we have this picture.
Yeah. Keep going.
A question came in kind of similar to what we talked about a little bit earlier about how do you hope this helps people? How do you hope your book helps people? So this one is, what do you want others to like learn or take away from your book or from your story?
I really think the story is an unconventional love story, and it also it is a love story because it's so love in real life. Love doesn't always have happy ever after. Sometimes love doesn't conquer all, but it's still there. And in this book, I think it'll show you, you know, in life there's some difficult choices sometimes, and sometimes you have to love yourself the most. And you can love people, and maybe maybe you don't end up together, but you're still, that doesn't take away the love that you have for them at all. And so it's an unconventional love story, and I really want to celebrate that. I think that is, you know, just this the cookie cutter story, that it's, you know, not everything's a Cinderella story, and real true love doesn't always have to be this, just, you know, it's not happy and ever after we grow old together, and it doesn't mean that the love was any less. So
and any
love yourself and everything you love and who you love. It's okay, even if you can't be with them, even if they're not here anymore and all that, it's okay to love them, and it's okay that you did, and you can celebrate it and remember it and honor it.
And all part of who you are today and where you're at today. And
it helps shape everything about you. So you know, even your biggest, in this book, when I worked for William Styron, I became so inspired because this man wrote about his own darkness and all the darkness in the world, all his, you know, his book subjects. He wrote about his own battles with depression that were horrific, and his own the horrors of the world, the Holocaust, slavery. So just that you can take your inner trauma or darkness, whatever it may be, small, large, whatever, and it doesn't have to define you in the worst way. It is part of you, though. You know, it's part of you. So you could own it and channel it into something different, into something better, what works for you, into something good for you. So that, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And sharing your story, and we all have different experiences. So even if it's sharing your story for somebody else to say, I'm not alone. I really feel that I've been through that. Like, somebody else is going through it. Like, this is something that I can connect to on a deeper level, to know that I'm experiencing this and I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, because you're not. And people, as I said, there's so many different ways of love and in life, and trauma and pain and all these things. And we've all gone through things on different levels, but it's part of you. And the more we try to fight that, and fight, you know, whether it be our parents or just fight it within ourselves. So many of us just spend our whole lives fighting all of this, you know, or sometimes being victims of circumstances. And sometimes people really are victims, of course, but at some point it is yours, it's there, and you have to somehow find a way to move on from it. But if you can take it and make something out of it that works for you, I think that is, I mean, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge level of empowerment, for sure.
Yes, and it's very freeing.
A couple more questions came through, more so about writing to something that's so personal to you. How did you deal with not using real names in the story? Did you ever find yourself accidentally writing somebody's name and having to delete it?
No, most of my characters that were inspired from most of the characters that were inspired from people that I have encountered. A lot of them were like hybrid, like they were mixes of people, you know, mixes of family members or friends and things like that. So that I never like really, I mean, with a little bit of an exception of maybe a few, but no, I don't. Well, no, that's such a, maybe once or twice maybe I
You're
did.
like, oh, delete, delete, delete.
You know what, not much more writing. It's sometimes in talking about it, I would say like,
Oh,
oh, because when it's kind of a personal experience too, and I'm trying to say something about the story, I used a name,
mhm.
but try to be careful.
Was there another question came through? Was there any level of like concern or nervousness around potentially like exposing or just having information out there about issues that you've dealt with in your life or like other people that you're connected with kind of in this larger story?
Um, like I said, it's fiction inspired by actual events. It's not everything is the times, the people, the places, all of that is created in my brain with just inspiration. And I think most writers, I really have to feel character, like I have to kind of feel people, like the emotions, or think about a certain person to kind of write this character. And I mean, there's nothing in this book that isn't already sort of out there in my world. So I wasn't, concerned. And I had the such support of everyone involved in this story. And
Mhm.
so no.
Yeah, it's a jumping off point, right? Like, okay, these are some things that I'm thinking about from this, and I'll elaborate a little bit more, build around that, and
Yeah, that's exactly how I would go, and I would get creative with the characters and the timelines and the things like that. And
mhm,
so just a baseline, but most of my characters are all hybrid people. They're all just kind of little bits of a bunch of different people have met along the way.
mhm. So we have a question coming in, and definitely we have a few more minutes, if more questions come. A comment came in just now. Mixing real and fiction is hard. If I write my story, people I know will recognize it's me. This person is thinking of ghostwriting. Oh, do you have any opinions on ghostwriting?
Well, if you don't want people to know it's you, I totally understand. I still you can write under a pen name or
Oh yeah.
but then you don't get the accolade. Like no one will know, the people that know you wouldn't know you. I don't know. I'm kind of just I'm intrigued. I want to know, because what do you? I get that everyone's situation is different, and you might not want people to know certain things, and it's very vulnerable. Like it's very hard when you do put yourself. I really thought I had no problem with it. I'm kind of an open book, and then when it did come out, I'm like, ooh, but yeah, I think a pen name, ghostwriting is like you're writing for someone
somebody else.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a pen name, put it out there, and don't even tell the people that you don't want knowing about it.
Just hide them from your Instagram posts.
Have a party with just those who know, or have a party for yourself by yourself.
So I have a question that came in. What suggestions do you have for new or aspiring writers?
My biggest suggestion is when you're the biggest thing I can say is when you're writing a book, or thinking about writing a book, or starting to write a book, or writing in general, no one cares. No one, everyone's writing a book. I mean, everyone has a story to write. There's so many people that want to write a book, or in the thinking about writing a book. Or so when you say, like, even my own mom or the people closest to me, hey, I'm writing a book, or most people are like, oh, really? Yeah, okay. Like, and not that they don't love you or believe in you. It's just like, it's really difficult, and it's a long journey, in writing. So you have to believe in yourself. I can't say this enough.
Mhm.
You look in the mirror every day and say, I can do this, because you're not going to get the support. And even when your book comes out, you might not get the support. You'll be surprised if people don't read it or criticize you, or all these things. It's a lonely road, and you have to be. I don't know that, honestly, I could have written this. If it was 15 years ago, 10 years, I don't think that I would have been able to do it. It's very lonely, and as I said, my own family, like my son still, hey, I wrote a book. Hey, I won the New York Big Book Award. He's like, awesome. What's for dinner? It's, you have to believe in yourself and do this for you. And every day, just don't give up. Do it. Just, you're worth it. Power through. If it's a goal, just crush it. Just do it.
We had a comment just come in. Your writing is bravery. And then initially when you were starting out, were you kind of hoping that the story would help others?
No, I didn't.
That wasn't the initial thought. Yeah.
I have an ego. I don't know. Like, I don't think my ego, like, I didn't think it would help. I didn't think it would help others. I didn't think about that. Because as I said, though, the addiction piece, I didn't think. And then even the love, I just thought it was an interesting story. And I thought it was a different type of story. And I love the island. I really didn't. And I just think it's awesome that that's what's coming from this. And I'm glad that I could get vulnerable and really put some things and heart out there and really put some personal feelings and stuff out there. So I'm so excited for that. You have no idea. It's just awesome.
Yeah, it's just a huge accomplishment and just exciting to share your story, have so many people resonate with it. I'm sure getting that feedback of that this really helped me, or I really felt seen, or I really connected with that, it probably just feels amazing.
Yeah, I'm blown away. I'm just blown away.
We have a question about next steps. So somebody wants to know, are you working on another piece now? And if so, will it too center around George?
Oh my God, someone else asked that, and like a sequel, and I'm just like, I had no intention of writing this. This is, to me, a one-off. But then I thought about it. So someone asked me that on a podcast, and I was like, oh, but I just started thinking about it.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. Where does she go? But no, I was in the midst of writing another book, and something kind of not totally personal, kind of on the outskirts of our lives happened. And it was just this story that was horrible but fascinating, and there was a trial involved and all this stuff, and I listened to the trial, and then I started listening to other trials similar to it, and I had to write the story. And I know I'm being cryptic, and I apologize, but the story is, it's a bit of another, well, it's another dark subject, but there's a beautiful friendship, and it's a take on things that is not the norm. It's usually a victim of a crime is usually the victim, but there's other victims of a crime that are even close to the criminal. So, it's a different take on something. So I'm sorry I'm being so annoying, but that's I'm halfway through this. I'm about 13 chapters into this. So I hope I do it justice. It's not that personal. So I'm doing a ton of research because I really want to make sure I give voice to the characters appropriately.
Yeah, and maybe you're 12 chapters in, so you have some experience with this, like the difference between writing something so personal to you or writing something that's kind of maybe a little bit close to you but not as personal to you. Like, is that process just a lot different? Do you find it easier, harder, or just different?
I love that question because it's funny when you write. Well, it's they're both so hard. Like the personal, because when you're writing, when you've written something so personal, you can't see the forest through the trees. And like, well, it's my story or similar to my story, and I know a lot about these things and these events, and I have feelings here and all this, and you just feel like, then I would look at that every day and go, oh my God, is this any good, or is it just complete crap? I have no idea. It's too close. And then this, where this I struggle with because the character, like, I don't have experience in any of this. So now I'm feeling of my characters, just, is there anything behind their eyes? Like, are they well developed? Is it, I don't know. Is there passion here? Is there feelings? So it's just, they're both hard. It's just so hard. You just need good critique partners, and the Women's Fiction Writers Association. I just plug them again because they're great.
Yeah, plug the resources. So another project's in the works. Another question came in. Would you ever hold a writing class to help others get their words out?
Wow. I mean, I've never thought of that. I don't know that I'm that I'm not that experienced. I would love to. I think honestly, I would hold a class for, empowerment, discipline, and storytelling. I think writing is a craft that I'm newer at. I'm a good storyteller. As far as writing, it's a ton of work. It's not natural. I shouldn't say it's not natural. It's harder. It's, I'm a new novelist and writing dialogue and all of that. I'm been blogging and essays. I'm good at that. I'm good at like fast things, but I will give a class on storytelling. I would do that, and empowerment and discipline. I would give a class on discipline. Writing, I think.
Yep.
I don't think I'm ready yet, but maybe soon, hopefully.
Yeah. But even just having that structure and knowing how to hold yourself accountable, because like you said earlier in one of your responses, a lot of people out there are like, I'm writing a book, I'm doing it, I'm writing a book. But how many people actually write the book and finish it?
I listen to something every day. It's called Fearless Motivation. It's a soundtrack, and there's a bunch of them. And one of them always says, discipline. 99 times out of 10, discipline will beat talent any day, because and most authors will tell you, people who get published, there's so many great books out there. There's so many great stories sitting in a drawer and all that, because they didn't persevere. You have to get so tough, and you have to finish it, rework. My novel wasn't even this. I had to rework the whole thing after I got a million rejections. That in critiques, they loved it, but they thought it needed something a little bit different, and I always knew that it needed this alternating timeline. I figured that out when I was done with it, in a linear timeline, of course.
Yeah, of course, having to go back.
I had to rip it all apart, but you have to keep it up, keep it up.
So another specific question, would you work with someone if they gave you the synopsis of the storyline and you were really encouraged and believed in the story that they wanted to tell?
Would I work with them?
That's what they said.
If they, what was it again? If they really believed in it?
Yeah, maybe both.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if I was caught by a synopsis, but that you're talking, I'm not an agent. You want the agent to be caught. You don't want me to be caught.
I think it was the same person of like helping kind of craft that story.
I mean, sure. Like if I looked at your synopsis and thought it was fabulous. I mean, but I would be so intrigued, and that's what you want an agent to. You want that query letter and the synopsis to use. That is, I'll tell you, that was almost harder for me than writing the book, doing a query and a synopsis. Like, you have to surmise your whole book in a page, and it's just hot. But you nail that, and you'll get some agents, but then you have to have the goods to back it up. So your manuscript better be just as good.
So if people have some follow-up questions or want to connect with you and learn more about the project that you're working on right now, where can we find Dianne on the interweb?
I'm everywhere as Dianne C. Braley. So Twitter, Dianne C. Braley. My website, diannecbraley.com. I'd love it if you signed up for my newsletter. I swear to God, I won't inundate you. Just, I promise. Facebook, everything's Dianne C. Braley.
Okay. We had another question come in about finding agents, but I think I'm looking at the clock and we're running out of time. So maybe that's another follow-up conversation. If you hold
Query Tracker, you gotta join Query Tracker.
Query Tracker.
And do a ton of research, Query Tracker. You can find all your agents there. It's $25 a year, I think. And all your genre is perfect. It's great.
And this person also says they think that you are just amazing.
Wow. Is that that's my aunt or my sister? So, or that's who that is.
I'm not, or just a fan, a fan.
I don't know about that.
Before,
Thank
I'm sure, no, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up tonight, we actually have 2 giveaways that we're gonna do. So in order to do the giveaway, I see people chatting in the Q&A, but we also have the chat open. So I'm gonna say we have 2 questions that we're gonna ask. And the first person to get that right will win the giveaway. So the first giveaway is going to be correct me if I'm wrong, a signed copy of The Silence and the Sound. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do a signed copy. So if you are the first person to answer this question right, and you can answer it in the chat, or you can answer it in like the Q&A, I have both open. So whichever is quickest for you, if you want to win, is what is the name of Georgette's dog?
I said it earlier.
Oh, somebody got it quick. Hobo.
Yes, Hobo.
Hobo. James answered pretty quick.
Nice.
Okay, James, I will connect with you. If you want to send me in the chat your email address, James, you can send it like just to the host and panelists. I'll definitely connect with you so we can get you the book.
Thanks, James. Thanks for playing.
Okay, the next one is not in this book. So you have
tricky.
It's a little tricky. So do you want to, should we say what the prize is before or after the person wins? What do you think, Dianne?
We'll go after. I don't want them to be disappointed if it's not what they would want. It's a good prize.
Okay, we'll say after, but it's a good prize. It's $1 million.
No.
Just kidding. So what is Dianne C. Braley's favorite book of all time? And can you give us a hint, Dianne?
Sure. No, I don't want to let me. Oh God, I'm so bad. The South, the Southern Belle. No one.
Nobody's coming in yet. So a book about the South, the Southern Belles.
A curtain for a dress.
Oh, somebody got it.
Oh wow.
Oh, Lisa got it first. Sorry, Lisa was first. Gone with the Wind.
Yes, Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind, fabulous.
Yes, Lisa got it first. So do you want to tell Lisa what the prize is?
Oh yeah. So if you can just let us know your indie bookstore, whatever independent bookstore is near you, we're going to give you a $25 gift certificate from there. So we will set that up. We want to support local bookstores.
Yes, definitely. So congratulations to Lisa and congratulations to James. I'm double checking to see if I have y'all's emails from when you signed up for the panel tonight. But another question came in from James. Dianne, this is Jimmy, Paula W.'s younger brother. Are you?
Oh, hey. Hi.
Are you something you tomorrow night at the Reverie or Revere?
Oh, the Revere Library. Yeah, I'm talking at the Revere Library tomorrow in Revere, Massachusetts, the Revere Public Library, 5 o'clock.
Okay. If James is gonna be there, maybe you could just bring the book and hand it.
Oh yeah, I'll just bring the book.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm double checking that I have James and Lisa's email to follow up after this. Lisa, I do. And James, I do. Yeah, I have them, so we can definitely follow up. But we are a little bit over 9 o'clock, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you all so much for sharing your time with us this evening. Thank you virtually. Round of applause just for me, because you're the only person I'm the only person you can
Thank you. Jolie's awesome. She's so great.
Oh, stop.
So thank
But yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolie.
Any last parting words for our attendees?
No, thank you guys so much for coming. My heart is full. Like, I appreciate everything, and I just believe in yourself. Like, whatever you want to do, just go get it. Just go get it. And I love you all. Thank you so much for your support.
Love that. Thank you all so much, Lisa and James. I have your names, and I'll follow up via email with our prize to connect you. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your evening. Spread the word about The Silence and the Sound. Read it if you haven't read it yet. Spread the word and support your local bookstores. But everybody have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.